Hello, I am Xarkun. This is World of Warships Legends. Got a level 11 Bruce Fraser on the screen. He is the commander I am using for the new Tier 5 Premium British Heavy Cruiser, HMS London. Mikawa and Yamamoto are inspirations on this build. We're going to take a look real quick at the mod selection. Aiming Systems Mod 1 in the first slot and Steering Gears in the second. And then we're going to look at the ship's overview tab before jumping into some gameplay for our first impressions review of the London. London has sequential torpedoes, like any other British ship armed with torpedoes that can be launched one by one. It's got big guns for a cruiser at the tier, and it has a greater heal. The repair party restores severe damage. It is a pretty good heal in comparison to something like the Leander, which is the only other cruiser I can think of at the moment that has a heal at Tier 5. Maybe the Graf Spee does too, but this heal is better than both, I think. The London was the lead ship in the second series of County-class cruisers, British Washington Treaty cruisers armed with 8 powerful 203mm guns. The cruiser was rebuilt during extensive modernization undertaken in the late 1930s, which changed the ship's exterior and reinforced her armor and AA batteries. Entered service 1929, 4 ships in the series. Alright, let's jump into some gameplay now. We are going to be on Estuary in Capture the Base mode. I'll say right off the bat that this is not a very high damage game, but I think it represents what the London can do, as well as any of the 10 or 15 games I've played in this ship for the first impressions review. Before we get into calling the shots in the game, though, we're going to talk about the stats on this ship, and I'll be comparing this ship primarily to the other heavy cruisers at Tier 5 that I have, the Pensacola and Aoba. It just doesn't really compare favorably to the Graf Spee, or not favorably, but well, since the Graf Spee is completely different than the Aoba and the Pensacola. In any case, this ship has 34,600 hit points, which puts it at slightly more hit points than either the Pensacola or the Aoba. It has 8 203mm guns in 4x2 turrets. That's more guns than the Aoba's 6, less than the Pensacola's 10. 16.5 kilometer range on these guns with my Fraser build, comparable to both the Aoba and Pensacola. 15-second reload time, again comparable to both the Pensacola and Aoba, or rather comparable to the Pensacola. The Aoba has them both beat by more than 4 seconds. 22.5 second turret traverse time, significantly better than the turret traverse on the Pensacola, which is abominable, and marginally better than the Aoba. Either way, still rather slow. 2,850 max HE shell damage, that's 2,850. 17.5% fire chance on my build with Fraser. Edges out the Pensacola for max damage. Aoba beats the max damage on the HE by a few hundred points. You know, it's Japanese HE. Slightly better fire chance than either of them at 17.5, but only 0.5% more than the Aoba on my build. 4,778 max AP shell damage with punch through on Fraser, comparable to both the Tier 5 heavy cruisers. 8 torpedoes in 2 quad launchers on either side of the ship, same number of torps as the Aoba. Pensacola obviously has no torps. 106-second reload on those torps, 15,733 max damage. Aoba, in comparison, does 16,267. 1.2 kilometer detectability, so fairly stealthy. Only 7 kilometer range, and 59 knot speed on the torps. So, compared to the Aoba torps, which are longer ranged zoning torps that can reach out to 10 kilometers, the Londons are shorter range and more defensive in nature. The ship has a 33.6 knot top speed, slightly faster than the Pensacola, but several knots slower than the Aoba, which I think has a 37 knot top speed. 710 meter turning circle, which is the same as the Aoba. 6.3 second rudder shift time, which is fine. In the middle of the pack between the Aoba and the Pensacola. 10.1 kilometer detectability with Mikawa, as an inspiration on my build, edges out both the Aoba and Pensacola in terms of stealth, and is fairly stealthy for a cruiser. Now, how does this ship play? Well, it sort of plays like the British light cruisers, except it has much heavier guns that reload a lot more slowly. The fire chance, I think, is pretty excellent. I was initially running the Fraser build with the double fire chance because he's got 2 skills that increase fire chance, but I switched out the first one in the first row of skills to range in order to get a little bit more than the 15-kilometer range, which I think might be the better way to go because 17.5% fire chance is still fairly good. And you can see that the HE does inflict very nice damage against the superstructure of battleships. Of course, the Koenig is a tier 4, but I think you can expect pretty similar results on tier 5 battleships, maybe even tier 6 ones. Looks like our torpedoes there are going to miss. We've smoked up here. The London comes with the smokescreen consumable. I think it lasts for about 1 minute and 40 seconds. It's also got a very long duration sonar, I think at about 3 minutes. So that smoke and sonar combo can definitely help you protect yourself. With the 7-kilometer torpedoes that can be launched sequentially, 4 on either side of the ship, you can protect yourself against encroaching battleships that want to push in on your smokescreen. You can make them pay for it. The HE, of course, very good at setting battleships on fire and dealing damage that way. And the AP is fantastic against broadside cruisers, as we're going to demonstrate here. We notice a Dallas pulling around the corner. I think we shot at him a little bit earlier. He's going to be giving us flat broadside, and we're going to push in and, I guess, get into a little bit of a brawling situation, demonstrate how effective the AP can be. First shot, not so great. Second shot, 10k, 2 citadels. So, pretty nice damage there. Again, following the pattern, the next shot only overpens. We miss the citadel there. But we're closing in on the Dallas. He's going to start firing back at us. His AP does minimal damage, shattering or bouncing off the bow armor. A couple shells, I think, land in the superstructure for some overpenetration damage. And now the Dallas is turning in, continuing to fruitlessly fire AP at my bow. Might have been better for him to try to switch to HE. I do fire AP at his bow, trying to aim at his guns, don't get anything out of it. Just no point in switching to HE with the rather slow 15-second reload. Now the Dallas is very close to me. I am turning to get my torpedoes on target. You can see the firing angles on the torpedoes are a little bit better towards the rear of the ship. Nevertheless, we get there in time. We take down the Dallas for our first kill. Got 49,000 damage done. State of the game is not great, though. The flank on the other side of the map has completely collapsed. That just leaves me, this Ismail, and this friendly destroyer. Can't remember what it is at the moment. I think it's a Japanese one, maybe a Fubuki. So we are going to start heading back to the enemy the base now. Our base, not the enemy base, because the enemies are capturing our base, and we've got to stop them if we want to win. The Ismail, on the other hand, more content to chase a kiting Peter the Great Tier 4 battleship. Probably not the best use of his time. We could probably use his assistance here at the base a little bit more, but as it stands, this Fubuki and I are going to make, a last stand at the base, see if we can't clear out the enemies. They've got 2 battleships left. We know one is that Peter the Great heading toward the back of the map. There's a Fuso somewhere out there, a Budyoni, and I think a Mahan. It's probably the Mahan that is in the base, and I think we're going to see the Budyoni join in support of him. Now, we're letting the Fubuki go out first. We're hoping he will spot one of the ships. HE is loaded for the Mahan, and we're going to go around this island because it does look like the Fubuki is going to reach the base and be able to get inside of it before, they have any hope of capping. Mayhan appears, spotted by the Fubuki. We hit him there, resetting his capture progress and lighting 2 fires. That seems to happen quite a bit with this ship. The guns are fairly accurate, and a lot of the time when I'm shooting at battleships, especially with the HE, I find that I can get 2 fires in a single salvo on a basis that is not irregular, I guess. Clearing out the barrels of the gun at the Budioni to get rid of the HE. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage to him, but we switch to the AP. The Budioni appears to be focused primarily on the Fubuki, as well he should be, but he's firing AP at the Fubuki, which is a good thing for the Fubuki. We fire AP back at him, hit him for 2 Citadels and 12k. Got some Mayhan torps coming in on us, and the Mayhan is shooting AP at our broadside. I can say that the armor on this London seems to me to be pretty good. You can get into some fights with battleships. I think we might take a few shots from that Fuso later on here, or maybe we won't in this game, but I find that as long as this ship is angled, the battleship caliber AP is still going to penetrate the armor, but it's not going to be getting citadels, and it's not going to do catastrophic damage. Even if it does, this heal is pretty great. It seems to be able to repair a little bit more, I think, AP penetration damage than your typical heal would on a cruiser. Not citadel damage. Maybe it can repair some of that. I'm not entirely sure what it means by a greater repair party that can restore more severe damage, but I think it is talking about AP shell penetration damage. In any case, the Budioni is gone. That leaves only the Mayhan. I'd like this Fubuki to get out of his smoke screen and maybe push in on the Mayhan to spot him, because I can kill this guy pretty quickly. There he is. Unfortunately, RNG only lands 3 of our shells on the Mayhan. Otherwise, we probably could have taken him out in a single salvo there. The Fubuki gets a nice shot on him. Mayhan is launching torpedoes. It's too late for him, though. He goes down. And we are going to comfortably dodge these torpedoes. So now you've seen the ship shoot at cruisers, destroyers, and battleships. Hopefully that gives you a good sense of what you can expect. What are my thoughts on the ship, and would I recommend buying it? Well, I think the ship is pretty fun. I wish the reload wasn't so slow. I understand why it is. It would just be probably a little too powerful if the reload was any faster. The smoke screen and the heal make this cruiser extremely survivable, in my opinion, for Tier 5 cruisers, and the damage output can be a little bit slow. I think by the end of this game we're only going to end up with about 70,000 damage done, which, isn't a lot, but it's double our hit points, so we've done our job, and we've successfully defended the base here, preventing us from losing the game. The Ismail is now going to move in on the enemy base, and I have no idea where the Fuso is. I thought he might be in this gap here, where he was last spotted on the minimap between the islands, but the Fubuki is going to push up there, take a peek down that gap, and not spot the Fuso, so obviously he has moved elsewhere into a position where he has no chance of stopping us from winning this match, so it's pretty much wrapped up. I've done more damage, of course, than this in the London, but I thought this was probably the more representative game for the ship, and that's what I wanted to show you guys. In any case, I think it's a really fun ship. I like it a lot. The only thing I don't particularly care for is the camo scheme, which does look kind of cool, but I just don't know if I'm a big fan of the green and blue color scheme. Your mileage may vary on that. I know some people probably love this camo, but the ship itself, pretty solid. I think it's a pretty strong heavy cruiser at Tier 5. Pretty excellent competitive pick with the long duration British sonar and the smoke combo that you can defend yourself with. The AP is fantastic against broadside cruisers. It can do a fair amount of damage to battleships as well. I don't know if it is the short-fused British AP. I believe it is. So, shooting at the superstructure on battleships with it, probably fairly lucrative, as it is in the light British cruisers. And, of course, the HE has a great fire chance that can start battleships on fire and can rip through destroyers like nobody's business. Here is the Fuso. I think he's going to shoot at us once. We are nicely angled against him. I don't know if any of his shells are going to hit, but if they do, you can kind of get an idea of what to expect. Yeah, one of them hits actually for an over-penetration. I find when battleships are shooting at this ship at angles like this, when their shells hit, they do tend to penetrate, but they do maybe like 4K damage at the worst. So I think the armor on this ship is fairly good and, like I said, fairly survivable. We light a fire on the Fuso, bringing our damage total up to 70,000, but that's all we're going to get. The game is going to end here in our victory. Hope you enjoyed this first impressions look at the London. If you're in the market for a Tier 5 heavy cruiser, I'd say this is actually a pretty good one to pick up. If you liked the video, leave a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.